Okay, they put me between here and lunch, so I'm going to be fairly quick. This is actually just an update talking about what's happening in ARIN and what's happening at the meeting at the second half of the week. I'm a realist. I don't expect any of you to see these slides and go change your flights. I don't expect anyone to decide they have to stay in Philadelphia a few more days. But we have a public policy mailing list, and occasionally it gets some email. We have the ability to participate remotely. So if you see a policy that you're interested in and you want to comment on, I'm trying to bring these to your attention. Go online, read about it, send your comments in, participate remotely in the ARIN Public Policy meeting. These policies affect you. Generally, they affect you after the fact, years later, when you put an application in and you say, I hate that policy. I didn't know that policy was up. I'm trying to give you heads up of policies that will affect your applications in the coming months and years. And if it's important to you, now's your time to get input. Okay, a couple of things. First, do we have IPv4 space in the ARIN region? Yes, we do. We presently have 5.7/8s. Now, this doesn't count a few things, like a substantial portion of 1/8 was the space returned by interop, and that is actually space that we held, and it's presently under discussion in the ARIN region of whether or not that space to be returned outside the region to the IANA, whether or not that space that should go to the IANA free pool for reallocation if we have a global policy. So I say 5.7, but take one and set it aside. There's also a public policy discussion right now in the ARIN region. It's actually been approved, but set aside by the board for IETF coordination. In the IETF, they're currently working on an internet draft. A number of people in the room, actually, I see faces who have worked on various parts of that, to set aside a block of address space for purposes of transition technologies. So we could lose a /10 to that. Even then, we do have a lot of space. And the rate of requests going into ARIN has actually dropped significantly. I don't know why. Sometime after February 3rd of this year, we had a huge increase in requests, but it's slowed down and it's moderated. At this point, it looks like we'll have space available under the current policies probably through the end of 2012. Now, actually, there's a guy who does a much better job than my hand-wringing at stuff like this, and he's going to speak on Wednesday, Mr. Houston. He has other ideas on when this is. For planning purpose, this isn't a bad horizon. Obviously, it could change. But we do expect to have space through the end of this year and through 2012, but that, of course, is right around the corner if you're planning a network. So, we have space. You can put in requests, not a problem. Remember that if you're an ISP, you get space based on 3 months, based on documented need. That means that you get a lot less space than you did before. You get to talk to us even more frequently when you come to get your next block. Specified transfer policy. Let's say you want more than 3 months, or let's say that you decide that you want to get address space and you've decided that for one reason or another you want a particular address block, or you have an address block that you already let someone use for 10 years and you want to now clean up the records. We have the ability to transfer blocks between parties. It's a specified transfer policy. It's NRPM 8.3. It presently says that you can transfer address space to another party if they need it. They have to meet the same policies, up to 12 months of their anticipated forward-looking demand. Now, we don't match people who have address space with people who need address space. We have some mechanisms that make that possible, but it's all up to you. There's actually people out there, an emerging industry, as it were, of people willing to help match buyers and sellers. And if you want to make sure the person you're dealing with is someone who's actually the address holder, there's ways of doing that. If you want to make sure the person you're dealing with actually will pass a transfer with ARIN, there's ways of doing that. We actually set up a mechanism specifically called the Specified Transfer Listing Service, where parties that are interested in trading address space can go in. If they have documented need, they can be shown with that need. If they have address space that's registered to them, we'll validate that, make sure they're the holder of record, and we'll put that on a listing. Again, we don't match the entries on either column. And of course, there's facilitators or brokers who want to facilitate this who join the system. Again, this is entirely an information service for people who want to find out how to get address space. We still have address space available through the normal request process, but we're trying to set up a little bit for the future, and this is out there for people who need it. Current draft policies and proposals. 9 active draft policies, 3 policy proposals. So, draft policies. Globally coordinated transfer policy would allow transfers to from the ARIN region to another region. The 2 RIRs must have compatible transfer policy, needs-based transfers to the other regions. ARIN 2011-5, shared address space for IPv4 address extension. I already talked about that. The ability to get an address block reserved for transition mechanisms. Currently, we're waiting to hear from the IETF of whether or not that's a technically useful mechanism before we act on that request. ARIN 2011-7, compliance requirement, requiring accurate reassignment information and enforcement via stopping reverse DNS services or revocation, currently under discussion. ARIN 2011-8, combined M&A and specified transfers, clarifies that organizations can provide both type of transfers at the same time, i.e. you could acquire a company and in the process end up transferring the address space you don't need to someone else but keeping the address space you do, or vice versa. Another policy in discussion is a global policy for post-IPv4 allocation mechanisms. The IANA has always given out /8 blocks to regional internet registries as each regional internet registry runs out of address space. As you run low, you show what you need, and you get 1 or more /8s. Actually, the practice has always been 2 /8s. There was never really a policy for giving out anything less, the current policy had a terminator policy. When we got down to the final 5 /8s, they were to be divided 1 each to each RIR. There's a question of whether or not we right now have a global IANA IPv4 allocation policy. Ergo, if something were to be returned to the IANA, what would the IANA do with it? This establishes a policy to take any space that is returned, divide it up, allocate it amongst the regions. ARIN 2011-10, remove the single aggregate requirement from specified transfer. There's a language question about how that's interpreted. This would clarify it in one particular direction. 2011-11, clarify justified need for transfers. Extends the 12-month supply period for address space to all transfers, all specified transfers. ARIN 2011-12, set transfer need to 24 months, allowing someone to actually go out and obtain space up to 24 months that they see, rather than asking what would be 8 times asking ARIN for their next 3 months worth of space. The advantages of having a lower policy, obviously, for what you get from ARIN's free pool is that when we run out, your neighbor ISP won't have just gotten a year's worth of space. He'll only have gotten 3 months. So it's nice that we're all sort of getting it in similar increments. But applying a year for a transfer policy, you're thinking if you go through the work of finding someone, getting an address block, doing the contract, working with ARIN, getting it transferred, and then you only get 12 months worth, people are thinking potentially that should be longer. Obviously, the other side of that is, well, if it's going to be longer, how long should it be? So, pros and cons to be discussed. ARIN 2011-13, IPv4 number resources for use within the region. This would say that resources that are registered in the region shall be used totally within the ARIN region. It's an interesting policy since ARIN's region's changed over time, but as it would be today, it would be our present region. Okay, those are the policies. Learn more and get involved. www.arin.net has all the policies. You can actually participate remotely, participate on the mailing list. www.arin.net participate will get you all that information. I will not try to hold you here, but I will take any questions on any of the slides, and then we'll let you folks go get lunch. Yes?
Sam Weiler. So I don't have a question on the slide. I have a question on the abstract,
Sure.
which mentioned the RPKI.
Yep.
Want to tell us a story?
Actually, it's a good idea. Let me tell 3 stories, and I'll start with RPKI. So the first one is, in the ARIN region, we've had requests for resource certification, i.e. providing a way for someone electronically to validate the address holder of an address block. And this is done with X509 technology, specifically Resource Public Key Infrastructure, RPKI technology. ARIN has been working on this. The region ARIN operates in is North America, Canada, U.S., parts of the Caribbean, Atlantic Islands, a few others. The problem with U.S. in particular is it's a nice litigious society. So if you do something, you have to be prepared to be sued. Whether you do it right or whether you do it wrong, you're going to get sued, and you just have to prepare in advance to make sure you can defend yourself. And with RPKI, it gets very exciting because you're effectively providing digital certification that a particular address block's held by a party. Now, this shouldn't be a problem because this is what we have and who is already. But the possibility that someone, for example, takes a routing announcement and says, my address block should be announceable via a given AS number, and typos the AS number. They type in 7011, and when they get their ROA, their routing goes offline. Well, as it turns out, they may come back to ARIN and say, you took me offline, it happened to be my big period, I was busy doing this online video of this new TV show, and that's where I make all my money, and I was offline, and pay us millions of dollars because your system generated a bad token, okay? Now, in a lot of places, they look at this person and say, you made a typo, you're a fool, throw them out of court. That turns out not to be a case in North America. So we actually have to go through a lot of work to make sure that I can stand up in court and say, the only way this could have been generated is the way that he generated it in something they call non-repudiation. So what we've had to do in ARIN is take what would be a fairly simple system and engineer it to overkill point to make sure that we have non-repudiation, to make sure that we have the ability to survive a bad actor, either whether it's one of our internal employees or whether that's a party relying on it, and detect that and recover from that. So our RPKI was a little delayed. We are doing RPKI, the hosted RPKI. This is us issuing certs on behalf of a block registered for ARIN, where we run the certificate authority, and that's targeted for January 1st. And then they have a second RPKI where you run the certificate authority, and as you generate certs, you pump them up to us, we sign them, and we send them back to you. And that's for a company that's doing a lot of things, like a large infrastructure would want to run their own CA. That's up-down RPKI, and that's targeted for early next year. So we are moving ahead with RPKI. It's a little slower than we thought because of the unique aspects of North America, but it is still on track. I wanted to say two more announcements that I wanted to slip in. One, we also have a new LRSA, Legacy Registration Services Agreement. It's out there for comment under the ARIN Suggestions page, and we look forward to that. We also have a new policy development process. This is the PDP. This is how we make these policies. That's out there for comment. Both of these are in the ARIN comment and suggestion process, and I welcome feedback. Okay, so does that answer your question and then some? Great. Okay, Senator Mike.
Hi, I'm Kathy Aronson, ARIN Advisory Council. It just occurred to me, since everyone in this community is voting right now, that we have a voting process that we should mention, because a lot of folks here are either can vote or somebody at their company should be prodded to vote.
Right. Thank you, Kathy. So there's a lot of elections going on. As you folks know, with respect to NANOG, you've got some elections regarding directors and some changes to the bylaws, and you've probably been provided information about that, but if not, find someone who looks intelligent about NANOG and ask them. You also have to worry about ARIN elections, because we have ARIN elections going on. We elect 2 members of the Board of Trustees and 5 members of the ARIN Advisory Council. The Board of Trustees is the responsible party for guiding the organization and execution of its mission. The Advisory Council is the body charged with advising the Board of Trustees on policy development and other matters as requested. The Advisory Council is particularly important because they're the ones who work on these policy proposals, gather community input, lead the discussion, and so it's very important. For every ARIN member, there is a designated member representative. That designated member representative is who can vote. If you have a question, you can drop a note or find one of the ARIN staff. We're here this week. We'll be here for the NANOG meeting and beyond. But we definitely need you to vote. We have some 4,000 organizations. We need to see hundreds of votes to have a valid election. So it's very important. And we want folks to exercise that. Find your designated member representative, get involved, and vote for your Board of Trustees members and vote for the Advisory Council. You can also put comments, you can put a statement of support. If you think a particular board member or advisory council member is doing a great job, you want others to know, you can go online to www.arin.net/elections, and on the elections webpage, there's a way to register statements of support that are publicly visible. So a very important reminder, this is how we run ARIN. It's elected by you, both the Board of Trustees and the Advisory Council. Thanks. Rear microphone, yes.
Malcolm Hutty from Links. John, it's another thing relating to RPKI. I'm here for the first time. I'm much more familiar with the right community, and in the right community, the RPKI proposal's been put through our policy development process. There's been a lively discussion about whether it's considered desirable for an RAI to operate an RPKI system, particularly a hosted RPKI system. I'm not going to go into the reasons around that discussion. I think you're familiar with them anyway. What I would like to ask you is, within the ARIN region, what opportunities are there for operators that might have comments on whether or not it's desirable for ARIN to be operating an RPKI system to influence the outcome?
Right. In the ARIN region, the ultimate decision to make to run RPKI is set by the Board of Trustees. The comments that are available are during the open microphone sessions in the ARIN meeting the second half of this week, and during the both in the policy sessions and in the member meeting the last day. At any open microphone session, you can stand up and say, I want to speak about RPKI and discuss the issues that are relevant to that. But it's something that's vested with the Board of Trustees, as it's a decision to make a service offering.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay, you're still going to get to lunch early, but I'll still take questions. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you very much, John. Please take time to fill out the surveys. They are linked to the right side of the agenda for this morning. There are several good giveaways. One lucky winner will win 7 Minutes in Heaven with Raz. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Have a